Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome back to Poke the Bear, episode 320, presented by Prize Picks and Game Time Tickets. My name is Conor Ryan. Once again, we are joined by the esteemed, the ever-knowledgeable Ty Anderson of 985 What's up, Ty? How you doing?
What's going on? How are we doing today?
Doing well. The Bruins are once again not playing all that well, Ty. They lose to Chicago Blackhawks.
Perfect. Perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, a team that, after they beat the New Jersey Devils on Tuesday 7-2, you're like, oh, they're really about to do it. We're really about to go into the final stretch of the year after a month plus of misery. You can even say multiple months, the way the season's gone. They get hot at the right time, or at the wrong time, rather, and knock themselves out of a top 5 pick. Goes back to equilibrium or back to what we expected on Thursday against Chicago, I would say, because that was not fun. That was ugly.
Yeah, that's probably one of the worst ones of the season. Entertainment factor, nil, I would say, for a long time.
Saw a lot of old friends score some goals, but
yeah, but it's hard to imagine a more dreadful game with two iconic franchises. This is not what I thought I was getting when I signed up for Bruins and Blackhawks. You know what I mean? Like this is what they are. This is where those teams are right now. A far cry from 2013, which, it was 12 years ago now, so it should be. But this was a game that was typically a primetime national TV kind of game. And I mean, again, even the goals the Bruins scored, very low event, very boring. I don't know, just not a lot of energy in that game, which is what you expect, I guess, from two teams eliminated. But a Mona Lisa of how to lose a game in a minute and a half by the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, not great. Jeremy Swayman has what? Did he make a save in the third period? Right? No, or was that's
0 for 3.
Not. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm a goalie coach. I'm not Bob Asenza, Ty. It's not great. I don't think you're looking for that in a situation where, again, that game just kind of gets away from you, and that's more or less what Morgan Geeky said after the game, right? Of that's been their problem all year, is that they feel like they're in these games that even if they're down a goal or two, you're able to claw back into it, and things just get away from them, and it snowballs really quickly. Usually, as you've attested to in your multiple lists you have that have documented how bad this team is, usually it's the end of periods or it's situations like that. A lot of times it's 1-2 punches of multiple goals in succession like that, and it's just this team lets go of the rope, and just disaster seems to spill out every time it happens.
Yeah, it's a mix of, I think the late period stuff is conditioning, which the Bruins have talked about their conditioning being an issue all year long. And I think the mindset, the mentality is what leads to that quick strike against offense. It's just, that is a hard line to have to walk when, it becomes mental too, to a certain degree. Like when you know that it keeps happening to you, it becomes mental. And it's I think teams can pounce on that. Teams do their pre-scouting. They know, hey, this team gives up energy. Let's attack here. Let's go. And if that happens, you're kind of screwed. And that's what's happened to the Bruins a lot this year.
Yeah, and if there's one positive we can draw from Thursday night, Bruins are once again in the mix, or in the driver's seat, I would say, for top 4 pick as of right now. They've continued to kind of get bailed out by the fact that other teams around them are playing better than they are. So you look at Pittsburgh won on Friday night. So I don't think the Bruins can actually catch up to the Pittsburgh Penguins now. So that's one less team that was in that bubble of misery that you have to deal with. And I think the Flyers are tied right now with the Islanders as we're recording, but that's one where they've got a few games behind you. If they can win some games, that's going to be key. But it feels like, in my gut, it's going to come down to Bruins and Kraken for that number 4 pick. And my God, that Kraken team sucks. So I can't. I can see a situation where the Bruins more or less have to lose out, I think, to secure that number 4 pick, because I could see the Kraken also just going 0 for 2, 0 for 3, however it is to end the year.
Yeah, they the Kraken have the Blues, I think, up next too, and they've been the best team in hockey, basically. No, they have been since the Four Nations break, and after that they have LA to close out the year. So I think maybe it comes down to where's LA at? are they locked into the home ice in the first round, which they desperately need against Edmonton, or are they still fighting and that game means something to them? Because the Bruins should lose one of these games, but if Jersey's coming to town with nothing to play for, which is the case because they're locked into that matchup with Carolina, like what are they sending? What are they sending to Boston? For game 82, what does that look like? And so it's going to be hard, I think, for the Bruins to out tank Seattle because, as you mentioned, Seattle is just a train wreck of a team, just an absolute, just like I think the worst part about Seattle, and I've said this about the Bruins this year too, which is painful. They're not just bad; they're boring. They're not fun to watch, which is like the worst kind of bad to be, in my opinion.
It's like the one promising player that they had for the start of their run was Matty Beniers, and now like he's just boring too. He's a great player, but I feel like he's going to go somewhere else in a couple of years, and he's going to be like a 70-point guy. It's just now like he's just stuck in. He's mired in mediocrity with just the way that team is, and as
Can it
soon as
be
you
here?
saw like
Can it be here? I'll take it here. Like honestly,
that'd be great. I mean, you look at that contract he signed. That's already like one of the best deals in the NHL. What is he paying? What's he getting? $7 million a year for the next 7 years, I think. So,
yeah.
yeah, a guy who's a legit player, but it it is something where you look at just how bad this season has been. It really is gonna. I feel like if you don't come out of this with a top 5 pick, it's not that it's all for naught, right? Like you're still getting a very good prospect, but I think staying in that top 5 is going to be key for this team of just being in that mix because it does seem like there's the Schaefer and the Misa that I think are in their own tier. But if you're able to get even in that next tier where it's Frundell, Hagens, Denoye, even like Martone, who isn't probably a top need for the Bruins, but you hear everything about him like, oh, this is Corey Perry. This is a power forward type player. I don't think that's the main focus of the Bruins, but you've got a pretty good player that you can get if you stay in that top 5 area. So definitely something to watch because it does feel like the biggest key for this offseason is getting a blue chip potential franchise player in this draft.
Yeah, you want to be, to your point, in position to get a franchise pillar. You don't want to bump down and then have a doomsday with your lottery. And now you're picking a player that you don't necessarily love, right? You're getting more into the uncertainty, and drafting is an uncertain science. We all know, but like the lower you get, the more of an uncertainty it sort of is. I think we all know what the top 4, top 5 players are. If you're picking, and I haven't done the math on this, so I don't even know if they could, but like if they're picking 7 or 8, it's like, okay, are you really grabbing the best guy here now, or like what's happening? And so that's the stuff that you want to avoid because this Bruins team, I think when they've been put in spots where there are multiple options or there are guys that maybe aren't the consensus, like they will start falling into their rabbit hole of like intangibles and what this and that, and it's like, okay, well, you should get talent, like, but and so I think the higher you are, the less debate there is in terms of who you're getting, right? And so I think for a team that struggles at drafting and identifying talent, just give me the easiest pathway to them identifying the talent right in front of their face and grabbing said talent.
Yeah, the easiest thing would be them just getting Michael Misa, right? Because then it's like, all right, we're done. We're like, the clock will start. What do they have, like 5 minutes? It'd be like 4:58, and be like, yep, we want the guy that's got 63 goals in 67 games, whatever it may be. But even like, I feel like this definitely isn't like the deepest draft. But you hear a lot of people say it's like, oh, it's like Schaefer, Misa, and then like a bunch of bums. Like the top 5, you've got guys that, again, even if maybe they're not a future top line center. Like you look at like Caleb Denoye, right? He's a guy that even he's probably like fourth or maybe fifth or sixth, right? Like I feel like a lot of people have Frundell ahead of him. They have Hagens ahead of them, and I don't think you can go wrong with any of those players really. But like Denoye is like viewed as a pro-ready two-way centerman that like maybe he's not a top line 90-point guy, but tell you what, if you tell the Bruins, hey, we're going to get you this guy, he's a 6'2", he's a strong player already that's going to get stronger, great two-way player, and he can give you 65 points a year for the next 10 plus years, I think you would take that. Like you've got a lot of guys that I think can step into a really important role right away. And I think kind of like a guy like Frundell is the same way. Like these guys, maybe they're not, a megastar, But if they are a guy that can drive play and you can slot in your top 6 for the next 10 years, I think you'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of needs for the Bruins, right? Like you look at every position and you go, "Yep, you need that. Yep, you need that." Like I think their steadiest position organizationally is probably left side D. Beyond that, like they need everything. They do need everything, and by that I mean long term. I don't just mean like, oh, next year. Like you have, I think it's 5 years left on the Lindholm contract, 5 years left on the Zadorov contract after this. You have Mason Lohrei, you have Freddie Brunet, like you got a lot of left shot D that are in your system, in your pipeline, or on your roster that are secured and gonna be here. Everywhere else though, it's like a lot of mid-tier prospects or lower-tier prospects that you hope can be something for you. So there's not a position I look at and go, yeah, no, don't draft that. Maybe goalie, but even then, like I'm not against you taking a 5th-round flyer on a guy you like if he's big and has good numbers. It's they need everything, but above all else, they need talent, and so that's where I just land on it. Like I'm overlooking quality of competition. I'm overlooking just about everything except, talent. Give me the talent. That is what's most important for this team, because we've talked about this before in this podcast, and I've talked about it on the radio in general. I think this league is becoming a talent league. When I see the teams that go on deep runs, I look at their roster and it's not, oh, they got the biggest team. Oh, they got the biggest goalie. Oh, they got the most expensive, whatever. Like, no, it's they have the most talent assembled on their roster. It's just the 2011 Bruins and the 2019 Blues, like those are becoming more and more, bigger and greater outliers than what's going to win now moving forward. Because I just run through the teams that have made it the last 3 years. I mean, it's racks on racks on racks of talent and goal scoring ability on those rosters.
It's almost like talent needs to be the foundation, and then as long as you have the talent to keep pace to stay in the race, then you can almost have the luxury of building what your identity is. But first, you need to be able to kick ass in the playoffs to do it right. It's almost like the identity, like as you said before, it was like the founding principle, the foundation of what you are. It's like you have a 3-word description of what your team is, and you have players that fit that mold. Now it's like just get the talent, and then once you're good and you're rolling, then you can be whatever you want. You're still going to kick the other team's ass if you're catching in on the power play, you're generating chances on the rush. You can kind of change it, and that is kind of just how the league is, right? Because like Florida, you look at the way they're built. Yeah, they've got some guys that are pains in the asses to play against, but Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett, those guys draw a lot of the attention. But look at the rest of their lineup. You've got noted bruiser Jesper Boquist on the 4th line, noted bruiser Evan Rodriguez killing it in a 3rd-line role, Anton Frondell, really physical juggernaut, right? No, not really, but hey, he kicked your ass last year in the playoffs. Braden Point, a guy that you look at the size of him, right? 5'10", not really a physical guy, has kicked your ass in multiple playoff runs. Like talent wins out, and then it's almost like the supporting cast or the 1 or 2 guys that are your identity guys that can play it however you want to play. But first, you got to punch your ticket and get into the playoffs, and all that does rely on the talent part of it.
Well, that's why, like we talk about Florida, a team that I absolutely love since the Four Nations break has been Tampa. Tampa has the top 5 offense in terms of goals per game since coming out of the break. They're top 5 in goals against in terms of limiting chances the other way. Their power play's top 10, I believe, over that same span. And then they go out and they get Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand. And now you have a top 9 that has Kucherov and Point and Gensel on one line. The second line has Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli. And the third line has Gourde, Paul, and Bjorkstrand. It's like, that's a lot of talent. That's a lot of talent. And Connor, when they came to town, Tampa did last, watching their defense, I was like, this is the least impressive Lightning defense I can remember in a long time. But they're all big. You have the talent, and to your point, now you can surround them with big defensemen, and you're like, we can score and we can just wipe out the D zone. Like to your point, they found their base. They have great goaltending, obviously, with Vasilevsky manning the crease. But they really did just completely revamp their top 9 in terms of its overall talent and their scope. If they didn't have Bjorkstrand and Gourde, Nick Paul's on your second line, which I don't love. That's a bit like Charlie Coyle being on your second line in Boston. Like they have just amassed all of these shooters and all of this diverse two-way three zone kind of talent that I think will make them a greater threat than they were, last spring. And the same thing with Colorado. I look at Colorado, I look at Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle and like the roles they're playing, and I'm like, yep, that's a luxury now, right? And so I think the teams that amass that talent and are able to spread the wealth out, I think it changed their dynamic. Like 6 months ago, I was down on Tampa. I don't know how you felt about them, but I was down on them. And a big reason why was because I thought, okay, their eggs are all in one basket because they had Hagel, Kucherov, and Point together. It was like the Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak era of Bruins hockey, where it's like, yeah, you got one superpowered line, but are you gonna make Michael Chaffee beat me on line two? Like, I don't really buy into that. Like, that's kind of like what it was like for Tampa. But now, my God, that is a reloaded Tampa squad.
Yeah, no, they are stacked. Bruins, not so stacked, but we'll look at what their plans are for this upcoming season, especially down the middle. Before we do that, Ty, let's take a quick break here from our friends over at Prize Picks. Springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. And don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond into your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash as you run your game all season long on PrizePicks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this baseball season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports takes into real money all season long on PrizePicks. And it's not just baseball. The second half of basketball season is also here, and the push to the playoffs is heating up on PrizePicks. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite hockey players with players from baseball, basketball, esports, and much more. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks. This week, I'm looking at the board, and I'm going to cover all my bases. I've got David Pastrnak for more than one goal and Alex Bregman for more than one home run. It's really that easy. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Shout out once again to PrizePicks. Ty, when you look at this roster, especially going into next season, we all know that the most pressing issue for this team is talent down the middle and how they're going to assemble their center grouping moving forward. How do you kind of see it all kind of playing out? Because they've got options, right? You've got Elias Lindholm, you've got Casey Middlestat, you got Matt Poitras, maybe you've got Fraser Minton, Kastelik. How do you see it all playing out? Because it feels like they've got a lot of players they can turn to, but how it all settles in and who they go to and where guys fit in does feel like it's up in the air. Because it doesn't feel like, barring a crazy trade, that they're going to address the center spot this offseason when there's not a lot of free agents out there, and it remains to be seen how the trades really do kind of shake out.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, do you look at the Bruins right now and say, like, they need a center? Like, yeah, they could use another one, but unless it's a first line center, like, I'm kind of good because right now I look at their roster and they have a lot of guys that are fringe 2s or 3s. And quite a few of them, I don't think you want to move off center. Like, we saw Matt Poitras off center and playing the wing this year. I didn't love it. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was like, I don't think this is how you want to use this guy moving forward. Middlestat, I don't think you want to put on the wing. You could, but he's not a great faceoff option. But with his speed and his vision, I think you want him moving through the middle. Zacha is probably the easiest one to move to the wing, I would say. But you have quite a few players that you want to keep them down the middle. And the wild card here, in my opinion, would be Fraser Minton. He comes up, he scored, he's getting chances. He had a breakaway against Chicago. Probably should have scored on that. Didn't get a great look on it, but this is somebody that they brought in, and they wanted him to be a responsible third line type of guy playing PK. but he's kind of forcing their hand a little bit here with the way he's playing offensively. He's creating opportunities, and it's a younger line that he's playing with. Obviously, like it's different. It's a different look, and so if he can emerge and have a really strong camp, a really strong whatever, and make the team next year, it's kind of like, okay, you kind of have a lot of guys here, and who's the surplus, and how do you handle that, right? I'm still not ruling out the possibility that they trade somebody at the draft to either move up or to, just kind of continue to rebuild the arsenal, so to speak, when it comes to capital to acquire players. Because I don't know, man. Like, there's just something with the center depth chart right now that just seems incomplete yet overcrowded at the same time. It's really a bizarre dynamic, I think, down the middle.
Yeah, because it's almost like you look at the bottom six. Like next year, if you're able to go into the season with Mark Castle at 4C, which I think we all assume is going to be the option there. He's the guy that has been one of the few bright spots on this team. So 4C Castellic, 3C, yeah, it kind of depends on how it goes, but like I like Minton as like a 3C of like you can project what his floor is and you're giving him time to grow. And I think especially if like would you rather have Minton or Potter? And it's like Potter, I feel like you want him to be with more high skilled players, whereas I think Minton can kind of just do his role. You can plug him in that spot in the lineup, and it's almost like kind of the if he ends up continuing to develop as he is, he offers the same kind of stability that Coyle had, where every year you go into camp, be like, oh, we got Coyle at 3C, and you don't have to worry about it. And I think you hope that a guy like Minton can step into that spot. So if that's your bottom six, yeah, how does it the rest of it pan out? Because like I don't know about you, but like one thing that could be huge for this team is what we've seen over the last 2-3 weeks of Elias Lindholm now being able to ride shotgun with David Pastrnak. If that carries into next year, it solves a lot of your problems, at least for the short term. Because if you're trying to max out his value, keep those two guys together. He's going to be a 60-point player, and you will take that.
Yeah, he's on like a 95-point pace the last, week playing with Pastrnak and Geeky. And that line would be an example of sort of, I think, it's I think I said to you the other day, like it's a bootleg version of the Gaudreau, Kachuk, Lindholm line in Calgary, where you got the flashy offensive, absolute wagon with David Pastrnak, and then you have the guy that wins the battles down low, can deflect pucks, can get in scoring areas, get in tight, and is kind of, not necessarily like Geeky is never going to be as good as Matthew Kachuk, but like he's a player that teams are going to have to almost like back off on to a certain degree if they have Pastrnak and Lindholm playing well out there. And so I think what's important to note here about Lindholm and Pastrnak, I wanted them to revisit this line, or this combo rather, especially once Pastrnak kind of got his game going. Because it's worth noting, they were trying to make that connection happen while David Pastrnak was playing his worst hockey of the season. He has since been on fire, one of the best players in the league over the last, 4 months, basically. And it's like, okay, let's see if we can get that kind of recalibrated, so to speak, and get them going and on the same page. And so I do think that is a positive development in a season full of negative developments is the fact that you're able to kind of get those guys closer to the same page, it looks like, even though it's a very small sample size, as we all know.
Yeah, and it's almost like it would clarify a lot of things. Where again, like Elias Lindholm, we know what his flaws are, but if you're just trying to get value out of that guy, also it means that if they're able to click, you're able to put him in that spot. And as you said, that's not a stacked top line per se, but if that means that you have Geeky playing at his best level, you have Lindholm playing at his best level, and Pasternak's going to do what he does, and you can divert a lot of your focus on adding another scoring player on the third line and then getting a big player for the second line, things start falling more into place if you have Minton and Cass like locking down the bottom six. And who is the second line center? Is it Middlestad? Do you try to move him? Is it Potra? Do you try to move him as part of a deal to move up or get some other player as part of a hockey trade? Like, if you're able to not have to worry about where you're going to have to put Lindholm and like, all right, I guess he's just a really expensive 3C. Like, if he's a top line center by association with David Pastrnak, it does make everything kind of fall into place. Because then if you're able to go and look at that second line and you can sign Marner or Ehlers or someone, like things start making, things become a lot more clear for this team as to how their forward core kind of falls into place moving forward. Not even counting that you have like a pretty set group, and then you also have ideally a blue chip center prospect who's killing it in college hockey, the juniors, wherever too. Like that also is part of the equation as well.
I always look at teams that, have multiple picks late in a round, or, like, okay, this team has 5 picks in the first 40. Are they going to make all 5, or do they want to try to trade one for some help now? Nashville has 2 picks at the end of the first round this year. That's a team that you look at the signings they made, Stamkos, Marchessault, etc. Like, that's not a team that's going to be like, we're going to rebuild. Like, no, they're going to want to try to be competitive now. So if they have a surplus of picks and they want more help, that's going to help them in 2025, 26. Like, is the guy like Middlestead more appealing to them, or Poitras or whoever, and you can grab an extra first round pick just because they have too many and they don't want to be too in the weeds of their pipeline, so to speak. But I that's what I would look at if I'm the Bruins. Like, is there a team out there that is a contender, or B, just has too many picks, and you're not going to use all those picks, right? How about, do you want this guy? Like, because we want that pick, and we can all win here. I think that's how you'd have to look at that. But yeah, because I just think, like, right now, like, I don't see how you have a lineup that can have Casey Middlestead and Matthew Poitras next year. I just, like, I have a hard time seeing how that works. Without that sacrificing somebody else, a Fraser Minton, or vice versa. Like, do you want to have Poitras in the AHL again next year? Or do you want to have Minton in the AHL for a full year next year? Like, I don't know. Like, these guys prove it. You want to have them up here. And so there just feels like there's a trade that's going to happen with that position. That's just, I could be totally wrong here, obviously, but, like, just looking at it right now, it's like something feels off about that group. And how do you do that? I think the one thing you're most certain about now, which is kind of ironic, is Elias Lindholm. Elias Lindholm's he's not going anywhere. But now you're like, you know what? He kind of fits there. Like, all right. Like, that's the one thing you feel kind of good about now.
Yeah, if you get 65 points out of that guy, and again, like, I'm not putting him in the same category of, like, I feel pretty good with, like, Swayman bouncing back and getting back to his game next year, but, like, same thing with, like, Lindholm and those guys. Like, there's that adjustment period, the sticker shock, he dealt with an injury in training camp. Like, that could be a guy that now he kind of knows where his footing is. He's part of a new group now. Doesn't have to be like the guy, like David Pastrnak and Makova and all these guys are clearly stepping into that role. But if you go into next year and the chemistry you built this last stretch with Pastrnak carries over, yeah, like, he could be a 65-point guy and be penciled into that top 6 role, and then you're good to go. If you got Geeky back, Lindholm, and Pastrnak, that's a line. Don't touch it. Don't do anything with it, and then it all works out perfectly. Your second line next year, it's Misa and Marner, and you're all good to go. Right? It's easy.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I wanted to look it up real quick. As of right now, the Preds are projected to have the 3rd overall pick, and they also have Tampa's first round pick and Vegas's first round pick this year. So those could be bottom of the first round kind of picks. They also would have the 35th overall pick. So you're talking about 3 picks within like a 9 pick range. Like, are you going to use all those? You could. Like, the Bruins did in 2015, as we all know, which worked out fabulously for them. But, if it's a weaker draft, or it's one that you don't think you're going to get a high impact player, why don't you get something that's going to help you now? Philly's another team that has multiple picks slated for the end of the first round and a high pick in the second round. So if the Bruins target somebody, be it in the first round, a guy who's maybe falling down the board, and they're like, we gotta move on this, or a second round guy, like we've talked about Carter Amico before, like that feels like a Bruin to me. It just does, especially after trading Brandon Carlo,
big 6'6" guy.
Yeah, that. That's where I think a center trade could make sense for this team. But going back to what you're saying about Elias Lindholm, yeah, like, listen, he's not going to be the 90-point pace that we've seen with the last week, but I also think he can be better than the 40-point guy he was for 70 games. Like that's the truth is in the middle there, right? And so if you can get him back to being, a 20-40 guy, 60 points, like, you'll take it. The biggest thing for Lindholm, in my opinion, that I like. He's looked more willing to shoot the puck and to get in tight to jam away. The biggest thing for me with him next year, he's got to be more of a factor on the power play. He's got to be like, this is where the Bruins, I think, were given the biggest sort of disservice or downvote, whatever you want to call it, to with Lindholm bringing him in, is that they said on July 1, oh, he's going to be a good guy in the bumper for us. Half the time when he's in the bumper, he's not even a shooting option. Like he's stick is not even in a shooting lane, and so that's the biggest thing that they got to try to get him going next year. Because honestly, in my opinion, he was a worse bumper threat than Charlie Coyle and Pavel Zacha were a year ago when they manned that spot for the Bruins on their man advantage.
Yeah, there has to be some changes both to his approach and even maybe the overall power play approach moving forward, which might depend on whoever they bring in as a new head coach for next year. We'll talk about that coming up next, Ty. Before we do that, take another quick break here from our friends over at Game Time Tickets. Football season is over and the Bruins season is thankfully winding down. But don't fret because the Celtics are beginning their quest for Banner 19 and Fenway Park is already bumping this spring. And if you want to catch a Sox game or watch the C's take to the court on Causeway, you got to go with Game Time Tickets. With Kittle last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA, NHL, and MLB tickets. There's nothing like taking in a Celtics playoff game at the Garden. The crowd roaring when Tatum sinks a three, the sound from the court when Jaylen Brown throws down a slam. There's nothing better, and Game Time Tickets is the best way to get into the Garden this postseason. Even before the playoffs, you can catch Boston's regular season finale against the Hornets on Sunday at the Garden using Game Time. Game Time Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game, concert, or other event you want to attend, and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour returns guarantee, job loss insurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Shout out once again to our friends over at Game Time. Ty, to close this one out, Don Sweeney was on the NESN broadcast during Thursday's game against Chicago. Thankfully, it was not during the third period. But some of the questions he was asked about this team and moving forward was about this year's coaching staff and what next year's coaching staff will look like. And he mentioned that Joe Sacco has done a really good job, that he's coached two different teams, and that he'll also be in the mix when the Bruins are determining what their next head coach is going to be next year. I will preface this by saying, once again, I think we're all in agreement. Joe Sacco has dealt a very, very tough hand this year with the roster in front of him, and it sucks that is the case. But do you see a situation in which the Bruins have that mindset of he was dealt a bad hand and he's back? Or do you think that you really, especially with this offseason and what's at stake, that you're kind of tearing it down to the studs and trying to find a new coach, but even a new system, all that kind of stuff as well?
Can I sit on the fence here? Can I sit on the
Sure.
fence with by saying that what if the coaching market is kind of ass? Like what if there's not the options that the Bruins would like, right? Like what if it's a situation where the market is full of, Jay Woodcroft, John Tortorella, who wanted to fight Cam York or whatever happened there.
Bold.
Peter Laviolette being fired after flaming out with the Rangers and scratching Gabe Perreault and scratching Capo Caco, and you had all these younger Ranger players basically saying, "I'm fighting for my life out here." Do you want to bring that guy in, even though you get the good first year bump? What if it's a pool full of really flawed candidates? What if Mike Sullivan's not available? What if the guy in what if David Carl doesn't want to leave Denver or he chooses somebody who has a clearer picture than the Bruins do in terms of their path to being competitive? It has more young players, better pool, whatever you want to say. What if that's the case? And it's like, okay, like, because keep in mind, this is going to be Cam and Don's last coach they hire. I would have to imagine they are not allowed to hire and fire what would be a fifth coach, assuming what happens with Sacco, like they're going to be allowed to do that again. Like, no, like, so if the pool sucks, it almost is like a self-preservation to be like, you know what, we're going to keep Sacco around because we don't want to hitch our wagon to a guy we don't actually love as our top choice. Like, I think that's something that could be a factor here for the Bruins. So I wonder if that is something that's kind of kicking in the back of their mind. It's like, well, if we can't get what we want, like, do we really want to sign a guy to a 3-year deal and then be like, oh, this guy sucks, but we can't fire him because then we're getting fired?
Right. And it's almost like you'd want the Bruins to look for that younger, like, assistant coach, or try to find the next Carberry, right? Whether it's a guy like Carl, a guy like Donskov over in Dallas, Marco Sturm is a guy that's really kind of built up his coaching resume. And again, former Bruin, which plays into it. But I'd rather you go for that kind of player or that kind of coach and bank on potential and like just a new system, like innovative ideas, how you're building the power play, all that stuff, than the retread, right? Like people look at Laviolette and Gerard Gallant and all these things, and it's like, is the 1-year bump worth it when like we see how it ends every year? We see how it ends now with John Tortorella. We see how it ends with Gerard Gallant, where it's like you get a 1-year bump and then like it goes to shit really quick. Same with Laviolette now this year. Like it's almost like it. Yeah, it depends on if you're able to find that, the Brad Stevens, right, of like the younger coach that really innovative, that's ready for that opportunity. And if not, do you then stay safe and do that? And like, I think you ideally hope that you're able to find that new young coach, or even a guy like Sullivan, who's not a new young coach but a respected voice, right? I think that's a guy that the track record speaks for itself with what he can do. But if that doesn't happen, you do wonder. It's like, would you rather have Sacco? Would you rather have Laviolette? It's like, I don't know. Like, do you really want to? Well, you know how that story's going to end with a guy like Laviolette or Gallant.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you brought up Marco Sturm, because like that is the guy that I kind of look at as like a potential X factor, because he's done a great job as the Ontario Reigns, the LA Kings AHL affiliate. Done a great job these last 2 seasons as their head coach. And why that's interesting to me is that Marco Sturm began his coaching career after, I mean, obviously he was coaching Team Germany, and that's what put him on the radar. But when he went to the Kings, he went to their NHL staff as, I believe it was their power play coach. Wasn't a good situation for him. They thought he was a little overmatched, a little bit not ready for the spotlight. But, a head coach now, 3 years in Ontario. They got to, I believe, the 3rd round, I want to say, last year. They're the 3rd best team, I believe, in the West this year. Like that's a good roster. That's a good coaching job he's done. And so I look at that situation. I go, okay, is that, can that be a guy that you would hitch your wagon to? Because I don't think it's Jay Leach. I just don't. I don't think it's Jay Leach after what you've seen from this defense this year. It would be unconscionable to make him the head coach after what you've seen from their defensive structure this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you look at where Jay Leach was this past year. Like that's a guy that you viewed as being maybe the next coach in waiting. I don't know how you see just the way the defensive structure has been, just the results are what they are. And you can look at him as a young, promising coach, but you just have to look at what you're doing with how the team is played. I really can't see that being the situation this team is moving forward.
Yeah, like I think the Bruins hired Jay Leach with the hopes that he would be that guy, but he can't be. He just can't be right now. Like, and you hope maybe it's down the road, but like I think it's going to be really difficult for them to promote from within right now. But this is one of like the 19 things that they have to handle this offseason that as of, April 12th, I'm sitting here going, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. I feel pretty confident saying that I don't believe that Joe Sacco is the guy, but if the market stinks, as we've talked about, maybe he is the guy indefinitely. But that's a tough spot to be put in as well. This is this is sort of the biggest issue with the Bruins, right? Is that we talk about the changes they could make. We talk about what they could do. But every time we talk about what they could do, it is seemingly held up by Don and Cam being the guys to make the call. I'm not saying they deserve to be fired, but everything they do is attached to their legacy and like their tenure and what they've been able to do, what they've been empowered to do. Like that is a legit thing that keeps lingering over this team right now, and it's gonna until they're gone. And this is not advocating for them to get fired, but everything they do is gonna have that qualifier of like, well, they've been able to do this 4 times now, so this last one, it's got to be the last one. Like it's a weird way to run a franchise. It just is.
Yeah, how it all plays out. Like, I still feel like you got to go with a new voice, a younger. I keep on saying player, younger coach, and see what you can do. But remains to be seen.
Fuck it, make it a player. You know what? Close enough. Fraser Minton, you're the new head coach of the Boston Bruins.
The new youngest, the youngest looking man ever. David Carl is gonna show up in the NHL with like the Blackhawks and be like, "Oh, he's so young." Look at Fraser Minton. The dude looks like he's like 15 years old.
He makes
got Evan Marinofski on the bench.
He makes Axel Anderson look like he's 49 years old.
Exactly. Yes, he looks like Benjamin Button compared to what Fraser Minton looks like. So we'll see how that all plays out. Ty, before we let you go, where can we read your stuff? Where can we hear you on the airwaves? All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at 985thesport.com, as well as on Twitter and all that at _Ty Anderson. Yeah, you can check us out next week. Saturday, April 19th will be the final hockey show of the 2024-25 season. This was my first year hosting it. It was a crash course in learning how to host a radio show, something I had never done before. Very thankful to all the listeners and the callers. I love talking with you guys every week. So if you haven't called in yet, call in next Saturday. It's going to be the whole crew in studio live talking about what we've talked about, basically. The season that was and the many decisions ahead of the Boston Bruins this summer. So that's where you can find me. How about yourself?
Yes, you can read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way this Bruins season, and more importantly, going into the offseason with the draft, free agency, trades, coaching hire, potentially, all that stuff. We'll have you covered every step of the way. You can also follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days, at Conor Ryan _93. Ty, thank you once again for coming on the pod, talking hockey. And yes, anyone who wants to talk hockey, wants to listen to these guys break down the Bruins season, the good and mostly the bad, please do over on the Hockey Show on 98.5 The Sports Hub. This was episode 320 of Poke the Bear. You fans have a great rest of your week.